Have you ever felt that gnawing emptiness, that subtle, persistent hum of dissatisfaction, even when, by all outward appearances, you're doing everything right? You tick the boxes, you garner the likes, you earn the nods of agreement, yet there's a hollow echo where a sense of solid selfhood should reside. You're fluent in the language of others' expectations, a virtuoso of validation seeking, but when you look in the mirror, do you sometimes wonder whose reflection is truly staring back? This constant, often unconscious, pursuit of external approval is more than just a habit. It's a gilded cage, meticulously constructed by societal norms and our own deepest insecurities. It promises safety, belonging, and worth, but it delivers a diluted existence, a life lived on terms that are not our own. It whispers seductive promises of acceptance, while slowly, subtly strangling the very individuality it claims to protect. What if I told you that the most profound act of rebellion, the most courageous journey you could ever undertake, begins with a single defiant step away from this insatiable need for applause? Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who dared to gaze into the abyss of human nature and challenge its most cherished illusions, offered a radical alternative: to stop seeking and to start creating, to sculpt your own values, to define your own meaning, to become the architect of your own soul. This isn't just a path to authenticity. It's a path to power, not power over others, but the profound life-affirming power of self-mastery. Are you ready to dismantle the cage, piece by piece, and embark on the terrifying, exhilarating journey of forging your own being? The tendrils of approval-seeking sink deep into our psyche, often from our earliest days. As children, the approval of our caregivers is synonymous with survival, with love, with safety. We learn, implicitly and explicitly, which behaviors elicit smiles and praise, and which bring frowns or punishment. This primal wiring, though essential for early development, can calcify into a lifelong pattern if left unexamined. We internalize the idea that our worth is conditional, dependent on meeting external standards. Society then picks up where our early environment left off, presenting us with a bewildering array of scripts for success, happiness, and acceptability. We are bombarded with images of what we should be, what we should want, what we should achieve. The education system often rewards conformity and rule-following over independent thought. The workplace frequently values agreeableness and fitting into the corporate culture above disruptive innovation or challenging the status quo. And then there's the hyper-accelerated engine of modern social media, a relentless global arena for comparative judgment and performative validation. Here, approval is quantified, displayed publicly in likes, shares, and follower counts, turning the subtle art of social navigation into a high-stakes, often anxiety-inducing game. Each notification chime can deliver a dopamine hit of validation or a crushing blow of perceived inadequacy, training our brains to crave the former and dread the latter. We become adept at reading the room, at molding ourselves to fit the expectations of whatever group or individual holds the perceived keys to our validation. We become chameleons, shifting our colors to blend in, terrified of standing out for the wrong reasons. The problem is, in constantly adjusting our sails to catch the winds of others' opinions, we lose our own internal compass. Our sense of self-worth becomes outsourced, tethered to the fleeting and fickle judgments of those around us. A compliment can send us soaring. A critical remark, or even just the absence of expected praise, can plunge us into despair. We become puppets dancing to the tune of external validation, our strings pulled by 1,000 different hands, many of them belonging to people we don't even know or genuinely respect. This relentless pursuit isn't just exhausting, it's profoundly disempowering. When your self-esteem is a roller coaster subject to the whims of external opinion, you live in a state of perpetual anxiety. Will they like me? Will they approve? Am I good enough in their eyes? The focus shifts from intrinsic satisfaction, the joy of learning, creating, or simply being, to the extrinsic reward of a pat on the back or a digital heart icon. Originality withers because genuine self-expression always carries the risk of disapproval, of failing to meet the algorithms or the audience's implicit demands. Courage falters because stepping outside the accepted norms invites criticism, cancellation, or simply being ignored, which in the economy of attention can feel like a form of social death. We begin to curate our lives, not live them. Our social media profiles become highlight reels, carefully edited to project an image of success and happiness that may bear little resemblance to our inner reality. Our conversations become performances, our opinions carefully calibrated to align with the perceived consensus of our chosen online or offline tribes. We police our own thoughts, censoring ideas or feelings that might not be deemed acceptable. We trade the messy, unpredictable, and ultimately liberating journey of self-discovery for the sterile comfort of conformity. And the irony, the more desperately we seek approval, the less genuine we become, and often the less respect we ultimately garner, both from others and, crucially, from ourselves. We end up chasing a phantom, sacrificing the substance of our being for the shadow of acceptance. The validation we receive feels hollow because deep down, we know it wasn't earned by our true self, but by the mask we presented. Nietzsche, with his characteristic incisiveness, diagnosed this condition as symptomatic of what he termed herd morality or slave morality. He saw society as often promoting a set of values that prioritized docility, conformity, and utility to the group, rather than individual strength, creativity, and self-overcoming. The herd, in Nietzsche's stiff's view, seeks comfort and security above all else, and it achieves this by suppressing individuality and enforcing a common, unchallenging standard. To deviate from this standard is to risk being branded as dangerous, an outsider, weird, arrogant, or simply wrong. Approval within this framework is granted to those who best exemplify the herd's values, those who are agreeable, predictable, easily categorized, and who don't rock the boat. Think about it. How often are truly groundbreaking ideas, truly original personalities, met with immediate and universal acclaim? More often they are met with suspicion, ridicule, or outright hostility, precisely because they challenge the comfortable status quo, the accepted ways of thinking and being. Consider the pressure to follow certain career paths deemed sensible, to consume the right products, to adhere to prevailing political or social dogmas without question. These are modern manifestations of the herd instinct, demanding allegiance. The person who lives for approval, then, is unwittingly subscribing to this herd morality, allowing their actions and aspirations to be dictated by the fear of exclusion and the desire for acceptance by the collective. They become, in Nietzsche's challenging terms, a slave to the opinions and values of others rather than a master of their own destiny. This master-slave morality concept is not about literal masters and slaves, but about two fundamental orientations towards life and value creation. Slave morality, according to Nietzsche, begins by saying no to what is external, to what is different, to what is perceived as threatening or powerful, often symbolized by the master's type. It arises from a feeling of impotence or resentment. It defines good reactively as that which alleviates suffering, promotes equality, often misinterpreted as sameness, leveling down rather than lifting up, and is useful to the community. Think humility, pity, kindness, patience. These are not inherently bad qualities, but when they become the sole determinants of worth, and when they arise from a place of resentment or fear of those who embody strength, independence, and individuality, they can become life-denying. They can discourage excellence and encourage mediocrity in the name of communal comfort. Master morality, in contrast, arises from a yes saying to oneself, from a position of strength and self-affirmation. The noble type, the self-creator, determines value from within. Good is what affirms their own strength, power in the sense of self-mastery and creative force, health, vitality, and flourishing. Bad is simply what is not good, what is common, weak, or derivative. The individual operating from this space isn't necessarily cruel or dismissive of others, though Nietzsche acknowledges this potential, but their primary allegiance is to their own self-actualization, their own vision of excellence, their self-chosen values. Seeking approval, therefore, is a hallmark of slave morality, because it inherently defers judgment to an external source, the herd. It perpetually asks, what do they think is good? Am I acceptable to them? Rather than the master morality question, what do I determine to be good, to be valuable, to be congruent with the self I am striving to create? This constant deferral erodes the very possibility of developing the robust self-regard, the internal validation that is essential for genuine self-creation. It keeps us small, tethered to the collective's lowest common denominator of acceptability, afraid to rise above the perceived safety of the average. Imagine trying to fill a sieve with water. That's the Sisyphean task of trying to achieve lasting satisfaction through external validation. Each drop of approval, a compliment, a promotion, a surge in social media followers offers a fleeting moment of relief, a temporary high, but the sieve remains. The underlying need, the fundamental insecurity, the core belief that your worth is externally determined, is not addressed, and so we must constantly seek more, a never-ending treadmill of performance and people-pleasing. This abyss of external validation is bottomless, because it is, by its very nature, outside of your control. You cannot dictate how others will perceive you, what mood they will be in when they encounter you, what unconscious biases and projections they will cast upon you, or what the ever-shifting algorithms of social platforms will favor tomorrow. To stake your self-worth on such an unstable foundation is to condemn yourself to a life of perpetual anxiety and reactivity. You become a weather vane, spinning with every shift in the social winds. What happens when the approval dries up? What happens when the person whose opinion you valued above all others changes their mind, disappears from your life, or simply expresses indifference? What happens when the online crowd moves on to the next shiny object? The structure of your self-esteem, built on such sandy ground, crumbles, leaving you feeling lost, worthless, and scrambling desperately to regain that external affirmation. This dependency fosters a profound lack of inner resilience. This is where the concept of the persona, popularized by Carl Jung, but deeply resonant with Nietzschean ideas of authenticity, becomes so relevant. The persona is the social mask we wear, the carefully constructed self we present to the world. It's the compromise between our individuality and the demands of society. It's not inherently negative. A functional persona is necessary for navigating social interactions, playing different roles, employee, parent, friend appropriately. But when we over-identify with this mask, when we mistake it for our true self, we lose touch with the deeper, more authentic layers of our being, including what Jung called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable and repress. The approval seeker is often someone whose persona has become calcified, overly rigid, and disconnected from their inner reality. They pour enormous psychic energy into maintaining the facade, ensuring it meets with public approval, constantly monitoring reactions, adjusting their performance. This leaves little energy for cultivating their actual self, for exploring their true desires, fears, and potentials. The real tragedy is that the more you invest in this constructed image, the more terrifying it becomes to let it slip, to reveal the uncurated, imperfect, complex, and perhaps unconventional person underneath. You become a prisoner of your own public relations campaign, haunted by the fear of being found out. The discrepancy between the idealized mask and the felt reality creates inner tension, anxiety, and often a deep sense of fraudulence. This is not freedom. This is not strength. This is a slow, quiet erosion of the soul, a trading of your birthright, your unique, unrepeatable self, for a handful of fleeting nods and smiles that can never truly nourish your core. But there is another way. Nietzsche's philosophy is not one of despair, but of radical, defiant hope. It's a call to arms, a call to become who you are. This isn't about discovering some preordained, static self hidden deep within. For Nietzsche, the self is not found, it is created. It is a work of art, a lifelong project of shaping, sculpting, and refining your character, your values, your very being, in accordance with your own highest aspirations. This is the essence of what he gestures towards with the concept of the Übermensch or Overman. It's not about becoming a superhuman in a literal sense, nor some kind of ruthless tyrant, but about overcoming the human, all too human tendencies towards mediocrity, conformity, resentment, and nihilism. The belief that life is meaningless. It's an ideal, a direction. The individual who has transcended herd morality, who creates their own values out of an abundance of life force, who affirms life in its totality, with all its suffering and joy, and who takes responsibility for forging their own meaning. Central to this process of self-creation is the will to power. Now, this term is often misunderstood, sometimes deliberately misinterpreted, as a crass desire for domination over others. But for Nietzsche, particularly in this context, the will to power is primarily an internal, dynamic, creative, life-affirming force. It's the fundamental drive inherent in all living things, to grow, to strive, to overcome obstacles, both internal and external, to expand, to express one's fullest potential, to impose form onto chaos, starting with the chaos of one's own unformed self. It's the energy behind self-mastery and self-transcendence. To stop seeking approval is the first, crucial act of redirecting this will to power inward, reclaiming it from the external world. Instead of expending your precious life energy trying to meet external expectations, trying to manipulate others' perceptions of you, you channel it into the arduous but exhilarating task of self-mastery and self-definition. This means consciously choosing your values, not passively absorbing them from your environment. It requires scrutinizing the beliefs and desires you hold. Are they truly yours, or are they inherited, implanted by culture, media, or family? It means cultivating your strengths, identifying and confronting your weaknesses, your shadows, and integrating all aspects of your being, the light and the dark, into a cohesive, authentic whole. It means daring to live in accordance with your own law, your self-chosen principles, even if that law sets you apart from the crowd, even if it makes you uncomfortable or misunderstood. This is not a path for the faint of heart. It demands courage, relentless honesty, discipline, and a willingness to embrace solitude and uncertainty, to stand alone if necessary. But the reward is incalculable. The emergence of a self that is not merely a reflection of others' desires, but a genuine expression of your own deepest, most potent life force. You move from being an actor reciting lines written by society to becoming the author, director, and protagonist of your own life story. This is the power of self-creation, the power to define meaning, to forge purpose, and to live with an intensity and integrity that the approval seeker, forever looking over their shoulder, can only dream of. Make no mistake, stepping off the well-trodden path of approval seeking is an act of profound rebellion, and like all rebellions, it comes with its own set of challenges and discomforts. The initial withdrawal from the drug of external validation can be intensely painful, like kicking any addiction. You may feel exposed, vulnerable, disoriented, and terrifyingly alone. The ingrained habit of checking for reactions, of gauging your worth by others' responses, will scream for attention. The voices of the herd, both internal, your own conditioned fears and insecurities, and external family, friends, society, will clamor at you to return to the fold. Who do you think you are? You're being selfish, arrogant. You'll end up isolated. That's not how things are done. These are the siren songs of conformity, designed to pull you back into the comfortable, predictable illusion of safety in numbers. There will be moments of profound doubt, moments when the sheer effort of self-creation feels overwhelming, and the allure of a simple pat on the back, of just fitting in again, seems overwhelmingly tempting. You might lose friends or alienate family members who were only comfortable with the approved-upon, masked version of you, the one who didn't challenge their own assumptions or make them feel uncomfortable. You might face criticism, misunderstanding, or even outright hostility from those who cannot comprehend why you would choose such an arduous, unconventional path. This is the necessary crucible. Nietzsche understood that growth often requires embracing what he called the discipline of great suffering. Not suffering for its own sake, but the inherent difficulty and pain that comes from confronting difficult truths about yourself and the world, from shedding old skins, from pushing beyond your perceived limits, from choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Yet, on the other side of this discomfort, often existing alongside it, lies a liberation so profound it can redefine your entire existence. Imagine the sheer relief of no longer having to constantly perform, of no longer feeling the exhausting pressure to be someone you're not, to anticipate and meet unseen expectations. Imagine the quiet, solid confidence that comes from knowing your worth is intrinsic, anchored within yourself, unshakable by the fluctuating opinions of others. This is the freedom that awaits. When you stop orienting your life around external approval, you reclaim vast reservoirs of mental and emotional energy that can be redirected towards what truly matters to you, your passions, your relationships, the authentic ones, your personal growth, your unique contribution to the world, however large or small. You begin to cultivate an internal locus of control, a grounding sense that your life, your choices, your responses are truly your own to shape. The fear of judgment, while it may never vanish entirely, we are social creatures, after all, loses its tyrannical hold. It becomes information, data to consider, rather than a verdict on your soul. You develop the capacity to hear criticism without being crushed by it, to evaluate it objectively, taking what is useful and discarding what is not. You can accept disagreement without questioning your fundamental worth or abandoning your convictions. There is a deep integrity, a profound sense of wholeness that comes from aligning your inner life, your thoughts, feelings, values, with your outer actions. This inner congruence radiates a quiet strength that no amount of external praise for a false self can ever replicate. This is the paradox. By relinquishing the desperate quest for external validation, you gain access to a far more potent and enduring form of self-validation, rooted in the courageous, ongoing act of living authentically according to your self-created values. So, how does one practically embark on this Nietzschean path of self-creation, moving from the shadow of approval-seeking into the light of self-authorship? It begins not with grand, dramatic gestures, but with small, consistent acts of courage and heightened self-awareness. The first step is radical self-honesty. You must be willing, brutally willing, to look unflinchingly at your own motivations, behaviors, and the gap between who you present yourself to be and who you truly are or aspire to be. Ask yourself the hard questions. Whose script am I living by? Whose definition of success am I chasing? Whose values am I upholding? And do I genuinely believe in them? In what areas of my life am I sacrificing my authentic self, my thoughts, my feelings, my desires, for the sake of approval, acceptance, or avoiding conflict? Keep a journal specifically for this. For a week, perhaps longer, note every time you feel a pang of anxiety about what others think, every time you modify your behavior, speech, or even your online posts to gain acceptance or avoid disapproval. What triggered it? What did you do? How did it feel afterwards? Relief, emptiness, resentment. Don't judge yourself harshly. The goal is objective observation, like a scientist studying a phenomenon. This awareness is the crucial first light in the darkness, illuminating the invisible strings that pull you. Are these actions truly aligned with the person I want to be, or are they echoes of an old, unexamined program designed purely for external validation? Next, you must consciously identify and define your core values. If you're not going to live by society's default values, or your parents' values, or your peer group's values, then by whose values will you live? This is not a passive process of picking from a pre-approved list. It requires deep introspection, experimentation, and refinement. What principles, if you lived by them consistently, would make you feel genuinely proud, strong, and authentic, even if no one else knew or applauded? What qualities do you admire most deeply in others, not because they are popular or successful, but because they resonate with something fundamental within you? For example, courage, integrity, compassion, creativity, intellectual honesty. What hills are you willing to die on, metaphorically speaking? Write these down. Don't just list single words. Try to define what they mean to you in practical terms. How would living by integrity actually look in your daily life? Refine this list over time. These chosen values will become your new compass, your internal gyroscope, your guide for navigating complex decisions. When faced with a choice, big or small, ask which option aligns more closely with my chosen values, not with what will gain me the most approval or cause the least friction. This internal alignment becomes the new source of validation. Then dare to embrace solitude and deliberate reflection. In the constant noise and stimulation of modern life, saturated with opinions, notifications, and demands for our attention, it's almost impossible to hear your own inner voice, let alone cultivate it. The approval seeker often fears solitude because it means being alone with the self they've neglected, facing the anxieties they usually drown out with external noise and validation-seeking activities. To break free, you must intentionally cultivate the capacity to be alone with yourself without distraction. Turn off the phone for dedicated periods. Go for walks in nature without headphones. Sit in silence for 10 minutes a day. Meditate, journal without the intention of sharing. It might feel profoundly uncomfortable at first. The mind, accustomed to constant input and the hunt for external feedback, will likely resist, generating restlessness or anxiety. Persist gently. It is in these moments of cultivated quietude that your own thoughts, feelings, and desires can begin to surface and distinguish themselves from the internalized noise of the crowd. It is here you can begin to truly listen to yourself, to process experiences on your own terms, and to connect with your emerging values. Solitude, when consciously chosen as a space for introspection and self-creation, transforms from a source of fear into a vital sanctuary for growth. Crucially, you must develop the courage to be disliked. This is perhaps the sharpest edge of the sword for the chronic approval seeker. The deep-seated fear of rejection, criticism, or social exclusion is powerful. But here's the unavoidable truth. If you begin to live authentically, if you start expressing your unique self, questioning norms, and living by your own carefully chosen values, some people will not like it. Some will disapprove, some will criticize you, misunderstand you, perhaps even resent you for challenging their own compromises. This is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is often a sign that you are finally doing something right for yourself. Nietzsche celebrated those individuals who possessed the strength to stand apart, to endure the icy current of social disapproval without compromising their integrity. Understand that seeking universal approval is not only an impossible goal, it's a guarantee of mediocrity and inauthenticity. You simply cannot be true to yourself and please everyone all the time. When you internalize this, when you accept that being disliked or misunderstood by some is an inevitable, even necessary, byproduct of living a meaningful and self-directed life, a strange and wonderful kind of freedom dawns. Their disapproval, while perhaps still unpleasant, loses its paralyzing power over your choices and your self-worth. You learn to prioritize your own integrity over external harmony based on falsehood. Begin to engage in small, consistent acts of self-creation. This isn't necessarily about suddenly quitting your job and moving to a mountaintop to sculpt statues, though for some it might eventually involve bold life changes. It's about infusing your existing daily life with small, deliberate choices that reflect your authentic self and your chosen values. Maybe it's finally speaking up in a meeting with an opinion you've held back, stated respectfully but firmly. Maybe it's pursuing a creative hobby that others might find strange or unproductive, but that brings you genuine joy and allows self-expression. Maybe it's setting a boundary and saying no to a request that would compromise your time, energy, or your values, even if it risks disappointing someone. Maybe it's choosing to dress in a way that feels authentic to you rather than conforming to trends or expectations. Maybe it's unfollowing social media accounts that consistently make you feel inadequate. Each small act of authentic self-expression, each choice made from your internal compass rather than for external validation, strengthens the muscles of self-creation. It builds momentum. It provides concrete evidence to your psyche that you can live differently, that you can survive and even thrive without universal applause. It proves your allegiance to yourself. Finally, Nietzsche's path involves embracing an attitude he called Amor, Fati, the love of one's fate. This isn't passive resignation or naive optimism. It is a radical, courageous acceptance and affirmation of your life in all its complexity, including its hardships, its mistakes, its suffering, and its imperfections, as well as its joys and triumphs. The journey of self-creation will inevitably involve setbacks, failures, moments of pain, confusion, and regret. Amor, Fati encourages you to embrace these experiences not as reasons for despair or resentment, see as why me, but as integral, necessary parts of your unique story, as raw material for growth, learning, and the strengthening of your character. It's about saying a profound yes to the totality of your existence, recognizing that even the difficult parts have contributed to shaping the person you are becoming. When you stop fighting against what is, and instead seek to understand, integrate, and grow from every experience, you unlock a profound sense of inner peace and resilient power. You learn to find meaning not just despite suffering, but sometimes through it, transforming obstacles into opportunities for demonstrating your self-created values. This journey of stopping the endless soul-sapping quest for approval and starting the audacious, life-affirming project of self-creation is not a destination you arrive at one sunny afternoon, receiving a certificate of completion. It is, as Nietzsche profoundly understood, an ongoing process, a continuous becoming, a dynamic dance between awareness and action. There will be days, perhaps many, when the old habits of seeking validation resurface with surprising force, when the fear of judgment whispers insidious doubts, when the comfort of conformity seems terribly appealing. This is human. This is part of the struggle. The key is not to achieve some static state of perfect, impenetrable self-authored enlightenment, but to remain committed to the path, to the process of continually asking yourself, with compassion and courage, am I living in alignment with my deepest self and my chosen values right now, or am I performing for an external audience, real or imagined? The joy, the meaning, the profound satisfaction lies not just in the outcome, but in the striving itself, in the courageous, difficult, day-by-day act of choosing to create yourself, rather than waiting passively for the world to stamp its approval or disapproval upon you. It's in the conscious shaping of your character, the deliberate cultivation of your virtues as you define them, the fearless expression of your unique perspective, and the unwavering commitment to your own growth. This is where true, enduring strength is forged, not in the fleeting warmth of applause earned by a mask, but in the enduring internal fire of your own self-wrought spirit. So I ask you now, as you stand at this potential crossroads, perhaps feeling the weight of expectation and the hollowness of conformity, what mask are you wearing today that feels heavier than it should? What authentic part of you, a thought, a feeling, a dream, a value, is yearning to be brought into the light, acknowledged and expressed, regardless of whether the world is ready to applaud it? The path Nietzsche points towards is not an easy one. It demands much, but it is a path that leads away from fragmentation and towards wholeness, away from reactivity and towards intentionality, away from a borrowed life and towards a self that is robust, resilient, and authentically, powerfully your own. It's a call to trade the fragile comfort of conformity for the exhilarating, terrifying freedom of genuine self-mastery. The power to stop seeking and start creating is already within you, waiting to be claimed. It begins with a choice, a declaration of independence, a commitment to honor the unique, unrepeatable miracle of your own being. What one small, concrete step can you take, today, right now, to begin authoring the next chapter of your life, not based on the shifting sands of others' approval, but on the bedrock truth of your own unfolding self? The pen is in your hand. The blank page awaits. What story will you dare to write? Let's continue this conversation, this exploration, in the comments below. What aspects of approval-seeking resonate most strongly with your own experience? What fears arise when you consider stepping away from it? And what does the challenging, inspiring idea of self-creation truly mean to you personally? I'm genuinely interested to hear your insights, your struggles, and your breakthroughs. Sharing our journeys can illuminate the path for others. And if this deep dive into Nietzsche's challenging but ultimately empowering vision resonates with you, if you feel the call to live a more conscious, courageous, and self-directed life, then hit that subscribe button and join this community. There is so much more for us to uncover together on this profound journey of becoming who we truly are.